Hello and welcome. This is Key Considerations for Online Ordering in 2024, produced by Nation's Restaurant News. This program is being sponsored and presented by Paytronix. Paytronix combines into one platform support for online ordering, loyalty initiatives, omni-channel messaging, artificial intelligence insights, and payments. Its mission is to help its users deliver to their users frictionless, relevant personal experiences to increase retention, build frequency, and raise customer lifetime value. I'm Alan Little, and on behalf of NRN, I'll be your moderator for today's program with Tim Ridgely and Ryan DeLello of Paytronix. Let's get housekeeping out of the way before we hear from Ryan and Tim. So you know, this presentation is being recorded for on-demand viewing. You'll receive an email with a link when that replay is available. If at any time today you experience difficulties with the audio or the slides do not advance, press the F5 key on a Windows system to refresh your webinar console. Use Command and R keys on an Apple device. If that fails, look to the Help widget at the bottom of your screen or type your technical question into the Q&A area. That Q&A area is also where you can enter questions you might have about our topic. Type yours in at any time, and we'll get to as many as we can later in the session. Before I hand off to our program experts, please let me share a few notes about them. Tim Ridgely is the Vice President of Online Ordering at Paytronix, a position he assumed in 2019 following Paytronix's acquisition of Open Dining, an online ordering provider that Tim co-founded and where he served as Chief Executive. And Ryan DeLillo is a content marketer for Paytronix. Ryan provides industry insights and content from thought leaders to help guide guest engagement strategies. So to all that, I just add, Ryan, you're up.
Alan, thanks so much as always, and very happy to be here with you all today to discuss some key considerations for online ordering in 2024. Tim, before I bring you in here, just a quick run through of today's agenda. You're going to notice that today's discussion starts very broad. It's the beginning of the year. We're going to be talking about what's on a bunch of restaurateurs' minds and then needle it down into online ordering at the start of the year, some strategies and considerations as you get going, regardless of where you are kind of in your adoption phase. And then we'll conclude by looking sort of down the road and ensuring that the decisions you're making are allowing for a strong foundation and some scalability in the future. So, Tim, I'm so happy to have you on here for the first Paytronix webinar of the year. How are you doing?
Fantastic, Ryan. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. It's a snowy day in Boston, but happy to be indoors talking online ordering. Tim, tell me, if you're a restaurateur, it's the beginning of the year, you're thinking through your guest engagement strategy, what's on your mind at a broad level?
Sure. So I tend to think at the kind of the macro level here, right? We've seen inflation is top of everyone's mind, I think, and it certainly was last year. And I think it's going to continue through this year, right? We're seeing it slow down, but it's not going away, right? And we're not going to see deflation. Prices are not going to come back to the level they were. And so that means everything costs more. And you're seeing the cost of capital go up, right? The zero interest rate policy period, that's over with, right? So now you've seen all of your financing becomes more expensive. All of your bets become more expensive. And you know, the corollary of that is that guests have less disposable income, right? So I think that's the major thing that's top of mind. There's also AI, and that's a huge topic and probably one that we could have a separate webinar on. So I want to table that and set that aside because the big thing I think that we're going to hit on at the macro level here is kind of that economic impact of inflation and the cost of capital going up, right? So I wanted to put a little asterisk there.
Totally.
And then, did you have a question? Yeah.
Well, no, Tim, I was going to say, I think that, yes, let's put a pin on the AI discussion, but inflation is important. And I'm curious from your perspective, like in the inflated economy, what impact is that having on strategy making for this year?
Yeah, so I think it's fun to compare and contrast, right? And when the cost of capital is quite low, I think you could take bigger bets and you could be more exploratory, right? You could try some things out and see what worked, test some hypotheses. And now when the cost of capital goes up, you need to pulse back on some of those things, right? Because taking a bet, now it becomes way more expensive to do that, right? The cost of that dollar to try something has gone up. And so now you have to take fewer bets or you know, maybe zero and really look at the ones you did take previously, hopefully you did, and say, okay, what worked, what didn't, and let's pull back, right? And let's say, okay, let's get really focused and efficient about the things we are doing, right? So I would look at both the exploratory measures and bets we took and just all aspects of the business we're operating today And I would run them through a couple lenses, right? Really keyed around focus and efficiency. One of those is what's important to your brand and your business, right? What are your brand goals? And there's no one size fits all answer here. I can't answer that for you, right? That's going to depend on each concept and what you have going on. But what's important to your brand, right? Speed of service, quality of food, blah, 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 right? All the things, great. And then the other one is ROI, right? Just for the investment that you're making, what's your return? And I would take those lenses and I would look at everything I'm doing. And you start at the top, the most expensive, biggest bets you're making and the biggest operations you're doing and say, okay, how do we tighten this up, right? Because when guests have more disposable income and when the cost of capital is quite low, you can be a little less efficient, right? You can say, look, like there's abundance. So if we're leaving a little bit on the table here and there, that's okay, right? Because let's grow the pie. But now the pie is not going to grow. The pie is more or less set. So now we really need to make sure we're squeezing. We're going to do more with less, right? We're not going to be able to hire as much, right? We can't go fill another position. We're going to make do with the same amount of people we have, the same things we have, right? So how can I get really efficient with the things I have in place and maybe swap some things out here and there to gain more efficiency, right? So I think we're going to look at those lenses. I want to make sure one thing that everybody hears here. I'm not talking about straight up cost cutting, right? Efficiency is not just about reducing costs. It's about achieving ROI, right? And so sometimes it might be actually an additional expenditure, right? Saying, hey, we're going to actually spend more money, but we found a better solution and we're going to achieve a higher ROI on those dollars, right? So we're going to spend, probably not double the spend on anything, but we're going to spend incrementally more, but we expect to achieve a much higher ROI on that thing, order of magnitude better kind of thing, right? If you can find those large gains. So again, it's really about saying, hey, what bets did we take in the past? What's working well? What's not? And then how can we double down, triple down on the things that are really working well, and then pull back on the things that aren't? And I would take that lens, I would look at everything I have going on, I would apply those lenses and see how I can get the most value out of all the aspects of my business.
Excellent, Tim. Well, I think that's perfect level setting for kind of the next step in our presentation here. That is, I think one of those key focus areas in guest engagement for maximizing efficiency and really aligning the full solution to your brand, so i.e. focus, is online ordering. And why is that? A few stats on the right here. First, the NRA 2030 Actionable Insights projects that online ordering will grow by 1.2 trillion by 2030. We also have found that 70% of consumers prefer to order direct from the restaurant, and 60% of US consumers order delivery or takeout once a week. So a quickly growing market, many folks are becoming attached to digital experiences. It's a prime area for restaurants to really double down on and try to optimize their ROI and solution this year. Tim, can you just take me through, because we're coming out of a really wild kind of rushed adoption period for online ordering. Take me through that story with the pandemic and maybe give us a sense of like where you gauge the industry is now from kind of a macro adoption sense.
Yeah. So pandemic was wild, right? We saw all of our platform volume just triple overnight. Never seen anything like it. Just it spiked way up. But you may think, okay, well, after that, it'll recede. And that didn't happen, right? It spiked up and then basically stayed that way. So this is a thing, right? And I think we all know that. It's been a thing since what, 2010, 2009, really before that. But that was the early stage. And you saw, your early adopters really pushing it and consumer awareness building. But now everybody knows, right? Shoot, pre-pandemic, QR code menus were not really a thing. And now they're commonplace, right? So a lot of these things have gone from nice to haves, incremental gains to table stakes. And then we're going to look to push beyond table stakes to do better and better, right? So it's here to stay. Maybe some concepts doesn't really apply to, but most of them it does. And it's not just a thing on the margins. It's pretty core to what you do.
Excellent, Tim. Well, moving along here, I mean, with the understanding that online ordering is here to stay, we've tried to boil down kind of three key solutions, I guess, for folks, boiling down where folks are with online ordering to three key solutions. And I'm wondering, Tim, if you can just walk us through each of these, because I understand each of them have pros and cons.
Yeah, for sure. So especially if the pandemic was a decision point for people, and certainly if it was, right? then you either had something in place or you needed something right away. And if you had something in place, you're probably thinking, okay, I'm just going to stick with what I have and keep it going, right? So that's it. That's decision one. If you don't have something, you needed it right away, like immediately. And then you went to probably one of these three options, right? So you say, okay, I have a point of sale. They have an add-on. I can flip this thing on, and now I have a solution right away, right? Easy to stand up. It's fast. Usually the consumers know what it is, right? Like if you've used the common POS-driven online ordering platforms, they all look the same. They work the same. Guests are familiar with it. Great. There's some trouble spots with that, right? You can't differentiate your brand on those platforms, or very limited differentiation there. And I think you're leaving a lot of value on the table with those. Again, they're fine, but a point of sale company is really focused around making a great point of sale and not making the other great guest engagement solutions along the way. So they're going to give you an adequate solution, but they're not going to maximize the full value of what you could be doing. So you have that, and then sometimes they just flatly don't work as well as other solutions in the market. That's going to depend on your vendor, but again, it's like it's not their core competency. It's not the thing they're really focusing all their time and energy on. So it's going to be typically adequate. Then the next thing here is the marketplaces, right? And that's another place people went to when the pandemic happened, and they're like, hey, I need to get more business. It's all e-com now. I need to stand something up fast if you don't have something. And the marketplaces, the DoorDashes, Ubers, Grubhubs of the world were a pretty easy turn there. It's like plug and play. Here's my tablet. Off I go. I get orders, and we're just going to go, right? So really similar to the point of sale. It's pretty easy to stand up. Guests know what they're doing. Guests may prefer it. There's a segment of guests that actually prefer to work through those marketplaces, and that's all fine. Well, and then you get the additional benefit of like guests coming through that channel. So I think it's a fantastic option for guest acquisition even today, and they take care of a lot of things for you. So that's great. Cons, they can be problematic, right? You have the commissions and cost is probably where most people start. Like, geez, 33% commission. What do I do with that? And I think beyond that, you look and say, okay, well, I don't get the guest data. You get Tim R. You don't get my phone number. You don't get to engage with me. And really, you have to think, okay, am I building a relationship with this guest? Are they a Tim's Tacos guest, or are they a DoorDash guest, right? Like, who is the customer really working with here? Who owns the relationship? And in many cases, the marketplaces do that. And they're actively working to divert guests to the rest of the marketplace, right? One of the things they're trying to do is say, hey, a brand has these guests, the brand plugs in. I want to take those guests, I want to move them across the marketplace and convert them from a brand loyal guest to a marketplace-wide guest, right? And that's ultimately bad for your restaurant brand, right? As you're trying to deepen relationships with these guests and keep them coming back to you, the marketplace is not aligned in that way. They're doing a different thing. So, one of those two were often in play. And then, if you have a first-party solution, certainly when the pandemic happened, you're just going to ride that out. You're going to say, look, I'm not making a change right now. There's too many other things going on. And a whole bunch of great pros here, right? You can hopefully craft something that's more aligned with your brand goals and brand experience. You own the data for sure. That's your stuff. I think you can, we say maximize ROI here, but we're really talking about, there's a whole bunch of value that you can now capture versus like a point of sale, these other things where they're fine. They're adequate. They're unobjectionable. But why don't we make something great? And what would great look like for you? It depends. It could be a look and feel. It could be tie in with the rest of your stack, those kinds of things, right? You have a whole tech stack. You have these other investments you've made, right? And we want all of those things to work together so that you get the full value of them, because if they're disconnected and working independently, you're probably missing things, right? It's the 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing, where can we add them all up and say, oh no, it has to work this way over here, or I want to do something with like a rewards program, but I can't because this part of my stack doesn't work with it, right? Those kinds of things. And maybe gift doesn't plug in, so gift doesn't work online, it only works in the store, and these kinds of things. Like, yeah, what if they all work together seamlessly, and what if we could really maximize the investment I made of each thing? And that's kind of where I look at that ROI and that return on your investment, that capital, and saying, okay, here's my capital spend. What am I getting for that, right? A small aside, like I'm a manual reader, so it's like if you read the full manual for all the solutions you have and say, boy, it has all these extra features I didn't even know about, and I can go and now my life gets better and I get more value from the thing I already have, right? And so I think this is a time where it's like, hey, go read your manuals. Like, go figure out those little niche features in the solutions and things you already have today that you haven't really explored. And there's a little settings page off in the corner, and you're like, what could that do for me, right? Because those incremental gains right now are going to be really powerful, and they're maybe easy wins, right? From things you already have today, and you don't have to spend more money, right? You don't have to add headcount. You don't have to add a new solution to your stack. You can just use what you have, right? So that's the kind of thing I'd be looking at there. But yeah, and when you add a third party, you can be adding to your tech stack, right? You maybe bring a new vendor in, and you have to think about how that plays out. Does it simplify your world or not? That's anytime you buy a new thing, right? And you're going to build it, bring it into your stack. It's like, does this make my life simpler or harder? And sometimes it makes it simpler because they have great relationships, integrations, and tie-ins. Sometimes it makes it harder if it's just going to be this thing that's standing alone out in the ether, right? And when you have those little point solutions, you get this fragmented tech stack that gets clunky and doesn't work well together, and you're not having a good time, right? It's inefficient, and you may not be spending money, but you're leaving value on the table, and you're probably incurring costs that's hard to see, right?
Well said, Tim. I want to zoom out for a second just to tell folks, I think that Tim was touching on some important nuances for all of these solutions. The point of this slide is just to sort of acknowledge everyone who may be joining us today. Everyone's approaching online ordering with a different solution. So we're just trying to get everything on the table. We'll look more in depth at these as the discussion continues. With that, Tim, I want to kind of zoom in on one aspect here. That is, as you're looking at all of these solutions, it's important to understand that there is like the price tag, and then there are all the associated costs that bubble up into cost of ownership. Talk us through that a little bit, Tim.
Yeah, this is just a general principle that it can be easy to just look at the sticker price of something and say that's its price number. And I think you're just missing a second cost there, that total cost of ownership. And this is generally applicable, right? Like, here's the price I pay for the thing. And in online ordering specifically, you have the IT cost, right? We talked to one brand that had a team of 5 IT staffers that just full-time job, keep the thing going, and operationally on a Friday night, remote into servers and do things. And it's like, okay, that's a cost, right? Just staff the thing. Operationally for your staff, when they go to use it on the floor, front of house, back of house, like, how is that working? Is there friction there? And these can be difficult to quantify exactly, but you can take a swing at it, right? And say, hey, this is adding this much time and cost to my operations, and we could streamline our ops and achieve efficiency by doing something, right? Or at least quantify what you have today. We think that costs X, right? And then there's, the marketing spend is like, what does it cost me to get people through this thing, or commission? If you have a marketplace solution, like, there's a cost there that's pretty substantial. And then if you're paying an agency to build out things on the front end, mobile app, those kinds of things too, like, just evaluate that full cost of ownership and that's an online ordering lens, but all the solutions, it's much more, typically it's more than just the sticker price, right? Someone's got to operate the thing. So what is that? Or if it's totally hands off, like, awesome, you're doing great, probably, or at least it lowers the cost. And then should you be getting more for it, right? So, yep.
Well said, Tim. And I think all of that, is to the point of, getting the most out of your solution requires giving it the support that it warrants. So moving on here, I'm curious for those folks who maybe quickly stood up a POS add-on or a third-party solution during the pandemic and are saying, like, this is working for us at this point. We would love to improve, but we're sticking with the solution. What tips can we offer those folks, Tim, to make that solution work?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is they probably are working okay, right? So you can find some efficiencies, especially with the marketplaces, the marketplace management solutions in the market. If you haven't explored those, is a layup, right? It's like, oh my gosh, if you have 4 or 5 tablets on your tabletop, like, don't do that anymore, right? That's a solved problem. Please go do that immediately. Your life will get substantially better not having to babysit a whole bunch of tablets. And beyond that, then you're looking at, menu optimizations and things. I would look at, a whole bunch. It's too brand specific, but can you optimize your menu? Can you do different things to appeal to the guests and the world changing, right? So we've seen some of those inflationary reactions and things, and trying to just land where your guest is, and then use your full stack, right? So the things that you have in play, make sure that they're tying together and that you're realizing all of those things. So if you have, like this says loyalty, but if you had gift and those kinds of things as well, make sure those things tie in as best you can. And if they don't, then I would just make myself a little post-it note and kind of say, here's an opportunity for improvement. As you're doing these evaluations, it's a great time to just take stock and say, oh, here are opportunities for improvement. Some of them we can realize now with a plan that makes sense for this year. And then some of those are potentially future bets, right? Like, we won't be in this capital constrained world forever. There's some signs it's getting better. Might take a few years, but here are some things I would table for 2025, 2026 with the lens to the future, right? Knowing that right now is maybe a time to really get efficient, but it won't always be that way. So let's have our next couple steps planned ahead too.
Totally understood, Tim. That sounds great. Moving on here, because even the folks who are maybe seeing success with their third party or POS add-on solutions, there's good reason for them to at least be considering a first party solution, and we're seeing that after the pandemic. Tons of operators are standing up first party. Tell me first why that is, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, right, the most obvious one is the price of it, the commissions. If you're just on third party, the commissions are rough, right? Because there's certainly a segment of those guests are your customers, and you're not getting the full value of that relationship, right? You're paying more for those orders when you shouldn't be. And those guests, I mean, they may open the DoorDash app to order from you, and then they get distracted along the way and they see something like you, and the marketplaces are 100% doing that on purpose. They are trying to divert your guests away to other concepts so that they become a marketplace guest and not a guest that you own and control, right? So big thing there, right? And then you talk about trust, right? Like the support that the marketplaces offer may be subpar. It's not really what you're going for. It's not direct and personable, right? It's not the same as having your manager talk to an upset guest. So I think those are the biggest things. And for sure, there's an operational efficiency piece. That may be a little harder to piece apart, but it's like, hey, can we make this way more efficient for our full stack, right? Are we manually transcribing orders? Like, don't do that. Cut that out for one. But can we get even more efficient with our ops? Those are the main stack. And then I think you have some things here about how much better first party guests are, which is generally true, right? You get all kinds of gains there.
Yeah. Well said, Tim. For those of you that want to just kind of read on the screen, I just tossed a few stats from our most recent online ordering report showing just how much more valuable first-party customers are. They order more frequently. They're better tippers. They spend more per order. They're more likely to be part of your loyalty program. Just to demonstrate that these customers are worth investing in, and they'll champion your brand. All right, so say I'm interested in first-party online ordering, Tim. This slide is kind of running through those key features that you should be looking for, and this is a real laundry list. But if you could take us through maybe just at a high level, Tim, what should I really be considering here, looking at this list of needs?
Yeah, ultimately, this is going to depend on where someone is in the adoption cycle, right? If some of these things are brand new to you, then okay, like you're putting your toe in the water and you're going to have the basics here, like secure payment is not like, of course, it should do that, right? So you may just be starting with table stakes, like let's just get something that works and is easy to manage and does the basics great, and then you can kind of graduate from there and say, okay, I really want this to have more sophisticated things like integration with my full stack, great, and a better branded experience rather than just a plug and play one. But I want one that really fits my brand. And do you have a concept where the item is the superstar of the experience, like a bowl or a burrito, where you really want the guest to spend time with that item, crafting it, and every little detail matters? Or is it a different menu altogether where it's a different presentation and you wouldn't want a guest to spend time with one item? It's like, yeah, pick a few things and get them through the process. And you're going to spend more time on like conversion rates and efficiency of ordering, right? Do you have menu imagery and those kind of things? There's so much that goes into it that aligns with brand goals, right? So bring it back to brand goals and figure out what are the arrows in your quiver that are important to you, and how do you align your ordering experience with those goals? So it's going to depend on the journey, but yep. Brian, have I lost you?
Yeah, Tim, am I still here? I noticed I was
I think you're here. Okay, I think you have a small delay, but yeah.
I think I'm here too. We're going to keep proceeding, and if I vanish, just call me out again.
Okay.
Okay.
Alan, am I coming through?
You're coming through now, but you're jagging a little bit. Do you want to refresh, or do we want to
Okay.
let Tim address a couple things?
Yeah, why don't, well, we can just press on. I don't want to hold things up. Let's see how your connection gets going here.
All right.
That sounds good. Tim, do you want to just take us through some key ways to measure success in online ordering?
Yeah. So presuming you have something today, like I said, I want to be looking at the areas of my business and saying, how can I optimize what's going on? With the things I have today, how can I squeeze more juice from the same lemon, right? And if you brought me in and said, Tim, look at my stuff, I would take a very basic lean. I would look at it qualitatively and quantitatively. So qualitatively, I would pull up your experience on my phone and website. I would step through it as a guest and as a returning member and say, how does this work? You know, how many taps or clicks did it take for me to get from A to B? Does it seem seamless and easy to use? Is it difficult to use? Do I get hung up somewhere along the way? Are there points of confusion and friction? Every little bit of friction you add in the process harms conversion rates, and conversion rates are super effective for your online ordering. That's the most important thing you're going to get out of this. So then you look quantitatively, look at the funnel, and we break funnels down into 4 simple steps. Someone views your menu, they add something to their order, they go to checkout, and they finish checkout, right? And we put our basic conversion stats here where somebody goes to a menu. Now, this is where it gets a little fiddly because they have to get to the menu with purchase intent. You know, they have to want to buy something. Sometimes people are just looking at the menu because they're browsing online. And so, you know, if your menu and online ordering link are the same and that's on the homepage, and you're going to get a ton of menu views on purchase intent, so you're going to see a change in your funnel at that point. That's natural and reasonable. And then once someone adds something to their cart, they're expressing purchase intent, and you should see that flatten off dramatically. So then, you know, we see 92% of people, once they add something to their cart, they go to checkout. And then somewhere in the order of 78% of people actually complete checkout. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Boy. So those are the areas I'd be looking at and say, okay, do I have a leaky funnel, right? Because if you have a leaky funnel, you are not maximizing the value of your solution, and maybe you can make some relatively simple improvements and patch those holes, and you're going to get more value from what you have in play today. You won't spend more money. You don't have to hire more people. Your balance sheet's going to look roughly the same. You'll just get more value from what you have today, right? And that could be that, you know, look at your checkout. That's one of the easiest areas where people drop off because maybe they can't get fulfillment in the way they want. Maybe they want delivery and it's not available to them. Maybe they can't pay in the way they want. Maybe they want to use a reward and they can't do it, right? Maybe it's just complicated and hard to use. There's some friction in your checkout flow that makes it painful, right? So it's a little squishy there, but you know, the numbers in your funnel can help dictate the level of activity you should be doing. And if it's super flat all along, then maybe you just need more people in your funnel, and you know, maybe deploying more marketing spend is a smart use of capital, right? You say, wow, we're doing an amazing job converting everyone that comes in, and we just need to pour more rocket fuel on this thing. So, you know, that's your kind of one-on-one level evaluation, and that should give you a starting point. And then you say, okay, well, how do I graduate from that, right? And then I would look and say, okay, well, connecting to the funnel, let's look at the top and let's look at the back. Do I have marketing attribution, right? So if I'm going to do marketing spend, can I attribute that? And then can I segment the funnel by marketing spend? Can I say, okay, well, when I deploy marketing spend over here, that gets me this much ROI through my funnel. When I deploy it over here, it gets me a different amount. And then you can think tactically about how to work through that, right? And on the back end, well, once a guest completes the order, that's not the end of their journey with my brand, right? So how am I reaching out to them? Do I have them in marketing campaigns, loyalty campaigns, bounce back campaigns, those kinds of things, right? What's my full guest experience? Do I have surveys? If someone has a negative experience, how am I going to know about that? Do I have the opportunity to correct it, right? And we see our survey solutions work really well. There's all kinds of stuff out there, but you know, those are the easiest things to plug in, right? Plug things into the top and the back of the funnel, and go from there. And then you branch out to the rest of your stack and things like that. Oh, other one I forgot. Yeah, do guests get their order, right? I guess the funnel stops at, you know, they submitted their order, but like, do they get it reliably? Is it accurate? Is it fulfilled well and on time? Things like that, right? Because yeah, if you have the opportunity to correct, this is about correcting problems. This is about evaluating what you have and saying, are there opportunities for improvement, ways I can tighten this thing up? so that we are getting more value from our current investment, or if I want to make an incrementally, a larger investment, I'm sure I'm going to get a return on it. So you start with evaluating what you have today. These are the ways I would
Excellent.
kind of tactically go about that.
I love the two-layer approach here, focusing just purely on the absolute core quantitative stuff and then getting a bit more advanced and qualitative. All right, moving on here. Tim, I understand that, with all of this stuff, especially at the start of the year as you're making a game plan for at least going into 2025, the name of the game is really building a strong foundation, reading the manual, as you said, getting the most out of your investments. Tell us a little bit about what goes into building that strong foundation and ensuring that your online ordering solution can scale for the future.
Sure. Again, it gets really subjective, right? It depends on what your current state is and what's important to your brand. You're going to come back to brand goals and efficiency, because you can't go wrong in the current climate and for the year ahead. If you build a focused, efficient structure and you exit the year and say, boy, I crushed focus, meaning we did the things that are important and we discarded the things that were unimportant, and we made that really efficient, you're going to exit the year and feel very happy, I think, with that, right? That won't be a bad platform to build on, right? And then going into 2025 and say, okay, well, what should I do from there? If you've got that nailed, you've got your house in order, I think you're going to have a very exciting year ahead, right? So again, painting with a real broad brush, I would start there. Then you look at the whole ecosystem and say, okay, where is an area where we're not as strong as we should be, and we should lift up our capability, right? And that's going to depend on, again, very subjective, but do you have kind of the table stakes things covered? Like if you don't have a first-party online ordering solution, well, do that, right? Get that figured out. And if you have that in place, then I would graduate to the guest engagement pieces, which are your feedback and loyalty and marketing campaigns, marketing attribution, those sorts of things, right? If you have things that you would like to operationally execute on but are unable to do so, I would start to quantify those and say, okay, what would the ROI be on that as well? And maybe that becomes a next year, like 2025 initiative, but lay some groundwork for it now once you get the basics done, right? But that's the big thing I'm going to come back to is I'm pretty sure if we all looked really, really hard, I bet there's leaky funnels we can all go patch.
Tim.
I
muted myself. So many great takeaways from this presentation. It goes back to just approaching 2024 with this idea towards focus and efficiency, reading your manual and making sure that the solutions that you're bringing on board are coextensive or you just complement your tech stack and make for a seamless operation. And fixing that leaky funnel, making sure that none of those guests are slipping through the cracks and that your online ordering is providing an amazing experience for everyone that's sure to bring them back to your brand. So with that, I want to open up the floor to questions. Alan, I believe that you're going to be kind of fielding and redirecting these towards Tim.
I will scan all that's coming in and I will toss it to the appropriate party, which in 99% of the case here will probably be Tim. So let's try that out. I have a question here that says it's to Tim and goes, with the rising cost of self-funded delivery for individual orders, I am stuck and have invested a lot in a other name brand system, but the third-party delivery companies have the drivers to get the orders to customers. What would you advise smaller restaurant companies do if we want to grow our direct first-party app, but also need small direct-to-delivery?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let me make sure I have this. Self-funded delivery for individual orders. So I'd like to clarify if that means that you have an in-house fleet or if you're leveraging the third-party DSPs, because you can mix and match, right? You can, obviously, if you want to staff a delivery operation, you can have your own drivers. That can make sense, right? You can control that leg of the journey and that bit of the guest experience, but you only have so many arrows in your quiver, right? So if that's a thing you're great at, awesome. And otherwise, you can leverage the third parties just for the delivery component, right? So we do this a lot where we enable first party ordering. So it'd be your branded web and app. And then you would leverage the the third-party delivery for the delivery component. I see. Okay, you have an in-house fleet, but not enough. Yeah, sure. So you can use the third parties just for the delivery leg, right? And plenty of companies do this today, like Chipotle does this. If you order delivery from the Chipotle website, you will have a DoorDash driver bring the order to you, right? So go try that out. That works really well. And the third parties can just be an extension of your arm, right? So it's like, okay, we have 2 drivers on hand and they're busy. Now we're going to use the third party to extend. We have seen operations where they then shut down their first party program and just replace it all with third party, but just delivery, right? To be clear. So you still own the guest relationship data, all that stuff, right? They're ordering through your app, your website, you own the guest relationship, you control their experience. The DSP is just doing the fulfillment leg, right? So they're just going to come send a driver to pick up the order and bring it to the guest. And then, yeah, so that works really well. We see providers, we do this where we work with a lot of the major ones, and then quality control becomes an important concern, so we can make sure that they're meeting their time standards, those kinds of things. Things are going well, and make sure you get credited for things that haven't gone well. But yeah, that's what I would look at doing. So you have a great thing today, and then it's just extending it so you have a little more capability.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. I know that we have talked about some of that, augmenting your existing staff with the third-party folk in webinars in the past, other webinars we've done. So yes, that is a strategy that is used by some folks. As Tim pointed out, it's a good solid one if you're short on your in-house folk but need a little more help on those. You're luckily you have too many orders to fill yourself and you want to get someone else to help out.
Or if you just don't have it at all.
Right.
Because there's this assumption. I think we're getting past that now. But it used to be, well, if I want to offer delivery, I have to go through the marketplaces, and that is untrue. You can totally enable delivery through your first-party channels, where you get all the benefits of first-party, and have third-party just facilitate the delivery piece for you. So, like, don't be on the marketplaces as a guest acquisition channel. So use your marketplace listings as a way to get new guests, right? Get all that volume, but then put programs in place to ideally convert from third to first party. Once you at least put a flyer in the bag, right? Let them know that you have first party ordering.
Well, that might play into this question if you didn't already answer it, but here's a question that asks, is there more information on best practices for using third party delivery from Paytronix?
Let's see. It's pretty simple. If you get the right tech partner to help you facilitate that, right? So the first party order goes to the third party. Well, it's pretty plug and play. It tends to be easy. Driver comes, picks it up. So I don't know. Do I have a lot of best practices? One of the things that we did early on that we still do is just evaluate the delivery performance, because they don't always go well all the time, and you should get credit when something doesn't go well. So make sure, like, we have an SLA with them. We say, if you're 15 minutes late, you owe, like, the DSP owes some amount of money back to the brand, because they're ultimately going to credit the consumer for that, right? So depending on how late they are, if things go wrong, make sure that you get full credit for that, because we were able to find like substantial sums of money and make sure that gets transmitted through. So hold them accountable is, I guess, the takeaway there. And that's going to help you deliver quality that you want for your guests.
And I would add, as part of what you were just saying, is you want to monitor, right? When you're into these arrangements, it's probably worth your while to do a little extracurricular monitoring of just how that third-party organization drivers are handling your orders. I don't know how you do that. Maybe Tim's got some ideas, but I guess you could use the feedback mechanism. But yeah, just do a little more direct monitoring when someone else is picking up that package and taking it out to your customers, if you own the first part of the website for ordering.
Staple the bag. Is probably the most obvious thing. Just close the bag. Hopefully everyone's doing that, but that's kind of the obvious thing. We get to cheat because we get a massive data feed, so we get to see exactly how every delivery performs, and performs relative to its quoted times and expectations, and are they within bounded parameters, that kind of thing. So, and by and large, they are. Like, the quality is actually reasonable. And then you just gotta make sure you have good exception handling in place too when it doesn't go well. The feedback surveys are a great option there. Make sure guests have a way to reach out to you, and then just empower your team to resolve the problems, because getting that guest back is the most important thing, right? Like, don't lose guests.
good. Always good. Always good advice. That's
kind of saying the
advice.
obvious here, but yeah,
No.
like going above and beyond, bringing that guest back is usually a good idea, right?
Well, it's just, and it goes back to the funnel work, of course. Obviously, that's a great place to start because I sometimes do not go back if I get interrupted in the ordering process. I get a little frustrated and I just don't finish it. That goes to that completion rate, which is so hard and important to look at. We have a question here that asks, what would be a typical standalone first-party product, something like a proprietary app?
You could. I mean, if you want a proprietary being like build your own, you can totally do that. The costs are going down. I would be a little worried. Whenever I talk to folks and they say, well, I'm going to build my own app or my own website, I think, okay, do you want to be a tech company or do you want to be great at food? Because doing both is a pretty difficult proposition. But there's plenty of standalone first-party solutions out there. I don't know how many names I should be naming, but online ordering system for restaurants probably turns up a bunch of things. We offer one that sits on top of the points of sale and things that you wind up using. So, empowering your web and mobile experiences to work really well, and then have order injection to your common POS so that you can fulfill the order easily, and then having it work with the rest of the ecosystem. So the third-party delivery, the marketplaces, loyalty, gift, all the kinds of things, because the online ordering experience tends to be kind of the tip, and then there's all the stuff below the surface that has to branch out, reach into, and work well with.
Okay, thanks. Hey, I'm probably remiss, and we probably could have saved a few questions here if I'd pointed out that Ryan actually has quite a bit of information on dealing with third party, maximizing those relationships, and how to make it work with what you have. And he has email. If you email him, he can send that to you, or if he sees your question and wants to add it, send it back to you via the email we have from your registration here. That works as well. But he has blog series, ebooks, forthcoming webinars. So the whole third-party question can be handled with a lot of information that's coming up. So anything you want to add to that, Ryan? I know that you're the guy that's got the info. So did I miss anything?
Alan, appreciate the shout out. I'm just going to echo that I'm seeing many questions come up here that are directly answered in Paytronix resources. I will have a report of these questions after, and let me follow up with you folks, get you some help.
Okay. I have a question here that asks, let's see, we're getting our first, do you have any tips? Well, this is a question that I think is asked a couple different ways, but do you have any tips for converting customers from third party to first party? And you've sort of touched on this in some places, but let's funnel it. Let's make it a question here. What are some tips on converting customers from third to first party, Tim?
Do I ever? Okay. So, I mean, I could do a whole other hour on this, and so I'll tighten it up. This is super hard, right? This is a super hard thing. Like, go into it understanding the level of difficulty of what you're talking about, because what you're talking about is changing consumer behavior, which is a difficult proposition, right? And you're fighting a machine that's really well capitalized. You're fighting a machine that has billions of dollars to try and incentivize guests to do one thing, and you want them to do a different thing. So let's just level set that this is not a trivial thing. And what we found is, like, attach something so that they know that awareness is step one, right? They have to know that you have the channel. And then they probably have the misconception that they can't go through that channel and get delivery, right? So you have to fix that misconception. And then you have to give them a reason to do it, right? Because, I mean, think about it. You've already got the app that you're used to using, your payments there, it's familiar, it's comfortable, it generally works, right? But there's that big old service fee. There's a big old delivery fee, and you don't like that as a guest, right? Do you like fees? I don't like fees. Do you like paying inflated prices? Don't tell them you're doing inflated prices, but you probably are, right? Do you want to save money? Well, yeah. The truth is we ran a bunch of tests on this, and we have a new solution we're launching. It's called Marketplace Conversion, where we put a unique QR code for each order that comes through, so we can track every single order and its conversion rate. We didn't see significant results until we went to a 50% offer. Like, you have to make a very rich offer to convert people. So, and that ties back to like how hard this is. It's not just, you can't give them an incremental bit. Once we did that, we've seen some pretty cool results downstream. So I think you start with awareness, like we have the channel, it can do what you want. Are you tired of paying the fees? All those things, right? And then make it as easy as you can, because you're gonna have to overcome that switching costs they have, right? That they already are used to the app, they already have it on hand. So make sure, probably mobile, right? These are mobile orders. Make sure mobile ordering is like really, really frictionless, and ideally make it look good, right? Like make your superstar items have rich imagery, make them beautiful, and really bring guests back. So, but make sure that that is as simple as you can possibly make it. And then if you can incent them with an offer that makes economic viable sense for you, do that, knowing that you are probably going to, like, you're trying to build a relationship with this guest, right? So you want to bring them in, and then once they order once, make sure you have hooks to keep them coming back, right? So if that's a bounce back offer, like it's the common saying, you got to get someone to order 4 times. Once they order 4 times with you, you've got them. So you've got to get in that 4th order, and that takes some doing, right? That's where you want to, like, we leverage the full stack. We took everything in our arsenal and we threw it at them, right? So you're talking at a rewards program, a campaign, SMS, like the works. And we've seen some pretty cool results, but you have to really hit them with everything you got. That said, I guess I'm all doom and gloom. But so you can start there, and that'll be wildly effective. Like then you really have an efficient machine for converting third to first party, because that third party channel is a fire hose, and you can divert some of that water to your first party where you get really good ROI on those guests, and that's worth doing. Start with print a flyer that covers the basics, that just says, hey, we have this channel, it can do everything you want, it's going to be great, and it'll save you money, right? Tired of paying fees? Of course you are. Me too, right? Want
You would
delicious
think
food?
that would
Here
you
you
would
go.
think that would be a pretty good sell right off the off the
Yep.
top. I mean that could cause a lot of folks to show up. So there is a question here that asks, how do you calculate the ROI when it has multiple facets, i.e. website, online ordering, loyalty, or do you just take year over year?
Okay. All you're trying to figure out with ROI is, as I invest $1, what do I get for it? That's the simple question you're trying to answer. And so it's, here's my spend for a given solution, right? And so I'm going to take an online ordering program, and it costs me X dollars to roll out in the solution and the manpower and all the things, right? And then what do I get for it? What's my return on that thing? And then you make a business case around it, right? So if you were going to have a new thing you want to do, like let's launch a new marketing campaign, okay, and have it tie in. I love when you have an online ordering solution and you drive guests to it, you can attribute that campaign and say, okay, it actually got me these results, right? But so year over year, it's whatever time period makes sense. You can certainly do a look back, right? And you say, okay, let's look back 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and say, okay, here's what we spent, right? Tally that up. And then you start with the sticker price, you start with the full cost, you try and, some of those are a little squishy and you have to, do a little bit of back of napkin math, but you get to, here was our cost over the last 6 months to run this thing, right? A loyalty program, an online ordering solution, a new cafe you opened up because you wanted to try a new concept and see how that worked, the new menu, a catering arm, whatever the initiative was, right? That has a cost. And then you say, okay, what return did that thing generate for me over that same time horizon, right? 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And then you might, if you really want to get sophisticated with it, you may look at like full lifetime value, because sometimes these things are slower burns where it's like, okay, the money realized in that time horizon doesn't reflect the full value of the initiative. So, like, let's be realistic about things, but back a napkin, that's how I do it, right? Is I'd say, okay, 6 month look back, here's what it cost me, here's what it got me, divide one by the other, there's your ROI, and then gives you something to work from at least. And certainly there's a whole bunch of nuance to these kinds of things, but at least it gives you a starting point where you can then say, if I can maneuver that upward, what would that do for me, right? And how can I go about tactically doing that, right? Do I need to just improve things? Does it need to improve like by a lot? Is it a significant inflection upward where I need to make material changes to what I'm doing? Or can I just patch some holes, maneuver upward, and I'll see a lift, right? Or maybe it's going great. And you're like, oh man, some of these things are very high ROI for me, and this is where we should double down. Here are the things that aren't working very well, and we should either abandon them or really tune them up, right? So that's what I'd be looking at.
Appreciate that perspective. Thanks, Tim. Here's a question that asks, what percent of online ordering is picked up by the customer versus being delivered? So pickup versus delivery. And I know that the Paytronix, Paytronix has a report that's talking about that. But can you share anything today about that pickup, takeout? I get that it's
Yeah,
takeout, really takeout versus delivery.
let's see. Ryan, you're gonna have to hold me accountable for this. I always think of it as about a 70-30 split. I'm sure this depends a ton on brand. Deliveries become so important though. Like everyone loves having things delivered. I'm sure that varies by concept, and I'm sure we have a number that might be different than that. But that's how I think of it. The other one I think of that's kind of fun is that when people order from the third parties, they almost always get delivery. So if you're getting an order from the DoorDash, Uber Eats, the Grubhubs of the world, 98% delivery, 2% pickup. So you don't get takeout volume through those channels. You only get delivery, which makes sense. Like who opens up DoorDash to get pickup? It's not a common use case.
Not common at all. Okay, thank you. Another question asks, can you guests change the language preference on your solution or others? This can help international guests place orders. So is there multilingual
Yeah. Oh man.
capability?
This came from a real person. This is a great tee up. Yeah, they can. So we have a multi-language solution. We went into Canada, and you have to support French legally in Quebec and all that. So we do that. I actually think it's important not just internationally. I think it's important here. There are a ton of Spanish-speaking folks in the U.S., and it just comes with the hospitality notion, right? Like we want to be hospitable and welcoming to people, and that means meeting them on their terms and engaging with them in a way that they're comfortable. And so having Spanish as a first-party supported solution is great, and saying, look, here's a menu that you're comfortable with and you can engage with. So yeah,
Good to know.
we have an AI menu translator too. We use GPT, and it will translate everything for you. One click, boom, and it just gives it a go.
There's that AI conversation, which of course will be had in multiple ways and multiple times in the coming year from your programming, I'm sure, and your reports. Here's a question that asked, any tips for leveraging the loyalty to drive first-party orders? That's probably a pretty good one. So leveraging
That's a
loyalty to
layup.
drive first-party orders.
Yeah. Okay. So certainly, if you're going third to first party, that's where the loyalty program can really shine, right? Because what you really want to do is, if you don't have the loyalty program, you can give them an offer, right? You can, print a flyer, put a coupon code or a QR code they scan and all that, but then they have to like stick it to their fridge and remember it for later, and they have to be top of mind later, and that's tough. If you have a loyalty program and you want to do the third to first party, then your goal is just enrollment. We want to just say, hey, scan this and sign up for our loyalty program. And it might take some time even to get them to order, but now you can take that fire hose of people coming from the third party and get them enrolled in your loyalty program and your marketing campaigns. You can start communicating with them, engaging with them, figuring out what's interesting for them, right? What do they respond to? What don't they respond to? And provide them offers, right? So it's like dating before you get married, right? So let's just get them engaged first, right? So that's great, because saying, hey, order again, it's like, I just ordered with you. I don't want to order again, right? Wait. And then make sure that loyalty, if you're working with loyalty, make sure it just, I talked about things working together. Make sure it ties well with your first party solution. So like as a guest is, if they're logged in and viewing the menu, do the rewards show up? Are they clear and easy to understand? Does the menu indicate what I can use my rewards on? Is it hard to use, right? What do I get hung up on? If I have a free appetizer reward, can I just click on it and see the appetizers, or do I have to know an appetizer works and kind of guess at it and poke at it for a bit? And how many people get a little bit confused along the way, especially if they're not tech savvy and all of that, and they're just having, they just want to order food. Like we're hitting people at a time, not to say they're like vulnerable, but like, I'm hungry, I want it now. It's sort of an urgent thing, right? It's just a wild time to sell something. It's very different than selling a sweater online, where someone can be more pensive and thoughtful about it. It's like, well, I want this now, and I'm hungry. So you may be catching someone at like their most impatient, and so we really just want to get them through the process as quick as we can with effectiveness.
Okay, that's good to know. any way that you can make the online ordering experience more relevant to the customer with your talk about the rewards and where they apply and what can I use them for, all that stuff is a grand slam when it comes to consumer satisfaction. Again, I'm probably a cranky consumer, but if I see a reward button, but it's not really clear what the reward is, I kind of go, well, yeah, that was not very helpful. So what's the deal? We have a question here that asks, what's the typical percent uptick in retention, repeat purchase rate when offering a loyalty program online versus just having online ordering?
Yeah, so let's tag Ryan in. He knows these stats so well.
I've got them written on my ceiling. 18 to 30% is the uptick in order frequency, combining online ordering with loyalty. I don't have the stat for what that would mean bubble up in terms of retention. But for all the reasons that Tim has already listed, I think it's crucial to get online ordering integrated with your loyalty program and build that personalized experience that's driving repeat business.
Okay, good to know. Let's see, let's cruise these questions. Well, here's a question that asks, when using white labeled third-party delivery services, what kind of problems are you seeing? We have recently integrated a 3PO and rolled out white label delivery via our website and app. It's been little but important problems around every corner with the process. So, I mean, what are you seeing when other people are using those third-party services? I think you talked about it, Tim. There doesn't seem to be all negative response out there. So, what about it?
It's not all sunshine and roses, and problems totally happen. But I think it's good. I would try and keep them in larger context, right? And so it's like, okay, if you had 100 orders, they're the first party order, right? They come from your first party web and mobile app, and then they're handled by a third party. Of those 100, how many go well? And you should be in the 90s, right? Shouldn't be, if you're dealing with problems, 1 out of every 10, 1 out of every 20, or that kind of thing. It's like, oh, that's not great. That's not a world you want to live in. But it's like, okay, there are late deliveries that happens. Drivers show up late. Drivers cancel, right? Especially if guests under tip. If they under tip, then drivers will cancel. So I guess one thing, when we've done this for so long, I take some of these things for granted, but like make sure you have a sensible default tip. Defaults are unbelievably powerful throughout your entire process, right? Look at your menu and think about what the defaults are, default modifier selections, those kinds of things. But default tip is very powerful. We did not, when we first rolled it out, and this is circa 2017, 26, I don't know, it's a long time ago. We didn't have a default tip, and sometimes people wouldn't tip, and then they would have a very hard time getting their things. So, but those things happen, and hopefully that's in the margins, right? So hopefully that's not like 50% of your orders have a problem. Like I would look really hard at that. Then I would be doing a deep dive, like what are the problems, and analyzing them and doing more like business analyst type things, and then how can we correct them? Hopefully that's not a common issue, right? Especially if you're adding like third-party delivery to an existing e-com channel, then it should be, hopefully it's already spun up and working. If you're launching a whole new e-com channel and third-party delivery, then you've kind of got a lot of moving parts, and I would start to dissect them and kind of see what's going on there. But again, it's hard to diagnose on a webinar, but I guess that's it. Hopefully you're not seeing massive troubles. And the thing I tend to advise when people are having issues is like, let's view this in larger context. Like, is it a 1%, a 10%, a 50%? Like how big an issue is this thing? Or is it a fraction of a percent? And then we're just really hot over that like 0.3%. And it's like, okay, I want everything to work perfectly all the time too, but sometimes things happen. So let's make sure that we're spending, I'll tie it back to the ROI. Make sure we're spending our time and energy on the highest value initiatives for our business. And if that's the right area for you, then go crush it.
Good to know that. Thank you, Tim. Ryan, I'm going to toss this out. We're going to be checking out here really quick, but someone says, what other core metric stats do you have taped on your wall, Ryan? Now, this is your chance to say, we got lots of reports and stuff. Come see us. Or you can answer, what are the core metrics you have taped on your wall? And then I'm going to bid farewell to everybody.
Nope. Quickly, I will give this person the favor and due diligence of just sending it to them on paper as opposed to screenshots of my wall. That's all from my corner.
All right, good enough. All right, so we're done for today, ladies and gentlemen, ready to sign off. Before we wander away, though, please let me thank today's presenters, Paytronix Ryan DeLillo and Tim Ridgely, as well as give a shout out to sponsor Paytronix, without whose support this program would not have been possible. Thank you in the audience for your time, attention, and questions as well. Please remember to share the replay link with this program with interested associates when it hits your email inbox. That's share this link with your associates when it hits your email inbox. Also, if you've not done so and you have an interest, the slides of this program are available in your resource area of your webinar console. And please do join us for future NRN webinars. Until then, though, for now, and all of us here, we'd like to bid you good health, goodbye, and good day.
Thanks, everyone.